Hey, Iburu, Iboya, Ibucheche, everybody in Cyberland. Hey, is your favorite Babalao? At least I hope so. Omodu, Modileke coming at you with another beautiful live. It's Sunday. This is our version of church so that we can start to educate the world, educate ourselves, and kind of move forward on Olodumari's vision, right? As we try to honor the Orishas and the Eguns, right? And we find ourselves in a beautiful place, right? Because it's December 1st, right? And December 1st marks, 30 days away from December 31st, and us getting into a new year. And not just a new year, right? But 2025, right? And I don't know about you, but this year has flown by. I don't know if each and every one of you feel the same way, but man, did this year fly, and I think it needed to. I think it needed to. On the last live, and what I tell a lot of people on my isla is that, if you listen to La Letra de Año, right, that I broadcasted in the first week of January of 2024, right, it kind of highlights a lot of things that were forecast, a lot of things that were happening, right? And we got to kind of see, real time as things started to unravel. So understanding what 2025 has to offer us is going to be very important. It's going to be very enlightening, right? Because again, the goal is to for us to enter 2025 with a clean slate, for us to maneuver 2025 complementing that clean slate, but now avoiding all the barriers, the osolbos, right? So that we can allow ourselves to stay aligned in Ide, so that we can tap into our Ori, our third eye, right? And we can begin to align ourselves beautifully. So, with that said, if you look at the description below, as always, hit the like, hit the share, right? The subscribe. But if you look in the description, right, you'll get a lot of different contact information for me. And if you guys ever need anything or trying to dissect something further, I'm very easy to work with. But nonetheless, before I jump in here, let me take a look and see who's on here. Make sure I give my blessing. Hey, little boy, Steve, Jose, Madam, Karen, M. Lock. Hey, Trey. Hey, Buddha boy. Hey, Buddha boy. Hey, go give all the little hearts, give all the likes. Hell yeah, get them all in there. I think that's important. I think that's what they tell me. They tell me that's important, but who knows? But all right, hey guys. So let's jump right in, right? Let's talk about this because there's quite a few things here that I really want to focus on when we talk about Letra de Año, right? And when you begin to kind of think about Letra de Año, we almost got to go back to the beginning. We almost got to better understand, what is Letra de Año? What is the letter of the year? And where does it come from? We understand that, you say the number based on X amount of practitioners within the world, right? And you can honestly say that we got millions, right? Maybe tens of millions, right? That wait for this moment in time, right? To ensure that everything is working itself out and that things are flowing. And what is the great advice that Ifá is going to give us? Because letra de año is a concept of when a sign from the 256 Odus, the oracles of Ifá, the word of God, 256 signs, we get to take a sneak peek on the Toyale, the main sign, the primary sign, and its two witnesses, the Okuta and Otomala, in order for us to better analyze what is 2025 going to reveal to us. But more importantly, we get a prophecy with that and we get some things that we can do. Right. So I think the letra de año is fascinating, right? In that concept. But what I want to share with you all right now is kind of analyzing letra de año, the why, the tradition, the cultural aspects of it, and then we dig in even further, right? So I want to make sure that we at least do that much. Hey, Bodo Boy Bucheche, Taishan, Minister, Paul, I see you guys out there. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So we understand that La letra de año, in our perspective, the purpose and the significance, right, is to provide a spiritual roadmap, right, highlighting the potential events and advising on the behaviors that we need to adopt or the behaviors we need to avoid, right, to align to a favorable outcome. That's the goal, right? We understand letra de año to that extent. So more importantly, when we start to truly dig into letra de año, we understand that letra de año is aligned primarily based on the date, the Lokumi practice, right? We do it on New Year's, right? When you got millions of people within the United States, within the diaspora, around the world, all ringing in, right? All ringing in a new year, a new beginning, right? And then we understand that, in Nigeria, we understand that June, right, the summer, is when they ring in, right, the letra de año for themselves, right? And obviously, these are two different concepts. But Nigeria's Oke Itesa festival is when they pull their Ifa signs. So if it comes to the state of understanding, right, the lineages, we understand that all Ifa practitioners follow the letra de año. But here we're going to go into a little deeper, right? We're going to go in a little deeper. And you're going to hear me explain later when we align the letra de año, or the Odun of the year. We also talk about the respect to the Eguns, and we're going to talk about the Odun of Oturaniku, right, Oturaobe. And you're going to begin to see why I highlight and I encourage every practitioner of Ifa to follow the letra of your land. Right? Now, the United States alone is going to have like 3 letras de años, 4 letras de años, right? Or you're going to begin to see that maybe your own Ile does its own letra de año, right? But letra de año at the end of the day, okay? Letra de año at the end of the day is an understanding that we have to give thanks to the ground, to the eguns, to the ancestors. But more importantly, when you are trying to tap into spirituality, you're trying to tap into power, and you're trying to pull that power, you're pulling power from the land, from the nature. So it's important to align yourself well with what is that connective spiritual tissue that you got going on. So for many of us, it's important that we follow the letras de años of the United States of America, because you're talking about one piece of land that's connected, right? That has bloodshed, that has sweat, tears, right? Death, life that has been exposed on this land that governs who we are, what we do, right? So not trying to, harp too heavily on that, but we're going to talk more about that, right? And then, when we talk about letra de año, the other piece of this is, the culture of the New Year's Eve party, the culture of the New Year's Eve, right? Where people get together, right? And when we get together, what do? We party. So you talk about a concept of family and unity, right? And that those things happen as well, right? So you talk about a celebration. You talk about honoring your ancestors. You talk about, again, getting to the point of how do we overcome barriers and how do we reinforce good behaviors in order to get a positive outcome for 2025. That is the goal. That is the goal. So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's talk about it. So when we begin to look at different concepts of la letra de año, I think the first Odun I want to talk to you about, right, is the Odun of Ayobi, right? And this is why this is important to understand. Because in Ayobi, we understand that that's the first sign. Ayobi is a pathway, right, to merit and caution. And when I say merit, I mean, what are those things that give me that merit badge? I think about the Boy Scouts, right, the Girl Scouts, and different clubs kids go to when they pin them with something that they did good. They got their merit badge. And when you think about that, you say Ayobi aligns us like that. Yes, because it's the pathway. Because Ayobi is everything. Ayobi is the beginning of everything. Ayobi is the head. Ayobi is Ori. So let's focus on this for a minute. And let's look at it. If Ayobi is an Odun that highlights the importance of responsibility and vigilance, opening up our spiritual minds in order to tackle the physical world. Ayobi warns us, right, against engaging in unnecessary conflict, deceitfulness, activities, risky behaviors, especially at night, because Ayobi is the sun, the light, right? Ayobi emphasizes the humility and and the behavior, the proper conduct, right, for society and community. So, one's reputation, right, and freedoms are at stake here, and that's what Ayobi talks about. So when I give you that mere breakdown of Ayobi, right, and that's just the icing of the cake. Ayobi is a massive old with a lot of things going on. Well, how does that correlate? How does this help reinforce the letter of the year? Because there's many people that don't necessarily agree with the letter of the year, or they don't like how certain people are doing letter of the year. And now politics have gotten involved in the letter of the year, right? Where people are like, well, we don't want to listen to Cuba because Cuba is very political and this, that, and the other, and everybody gets into their feelings. But I would tell you, the letter of the year is important. Who you follow and which letter of the year, that's a different that's a different conversation for a different day and a different time. My recommendation is you tune in to the letter of the year that I push out for the US. And most likely is going to come from Miami. And I'm going to be the one that's only going to broadcast those that I 100% legitimately endorse. Because I understand the Bawalaos who are doing it. I understand that they know how to do the ceremonies. And I understand that they understand how all these things flow together. That right there is key. Because what's the point of following something and then all of a sudden, the information is not necessarily accurate because they didn't necessarily do it the way they were supposed to do it. And maybe they didn't give honor to something they were supposed to give honor to that they didn't. So highly endorse that, right? Because let's go back to Ayobi. Let's dig into Letra de Año a little bit more. If Ayobi says feed the Ori, right, for clarity and alignment, then isn't nurturing your mind and building the intellect of your mind important? This is why Ayobi is important. This is why Ayobi lines up with the Letra de Año. That's why when we look at Ayobi, we always recognize that Olofin, Awa Olofin, and Orunmila guide the faithful. And spiritual assistance, right, extended, right, during initiations. Right? This is the reason why you have a year in white. This is the reason why Babalaos get a little, a little comfort, of a few years when they receive Ifá and they do Ifá, right? In order to ensure that the guidance of Olof and Orunmila are there as they are learning and they are trying to push forward so there's a lot to Ayobi, right? So what are we trying to do with Ayobi? How does Ayobi, letra de año? You guys get it now. Ayobi marks the letra de año because we need that clarity. We need that alignment. We need to understand the things that we have to avoid. We need to emphasize the humility and we got to look for the advice, right? So Ayobi fits very well as a concept that reinforces letra de año. And because of that, it's the reason why I'm doing this video, so we can better to understand the letra de año. Another Odun that relates heavily to letra de año is an Odun that's called Oturasuka, I'm sorry, Irete Suka or Irete Otura, right? Because this sign particularly reminds us that we have to follow and we have to start to really respect the elders and get after the things we got to get after, because in Irete Otura or Irete Suka, they talk about wisdom amidst betrayal. And I want you all to kind of think about that a little bit, right? Because wisdom amidst the trail. When we talk about that, we talk about the dangers, right, of misplacing our trust and values of wisdom. Our wisdom is our ability of gathering knowledge and getting the understanding and creating something that's going to help bring us to that spiritual alignment, like Ayobi was telling us. So now Ire de Sugal is starting to tell us that, hey, we need to manage our personal relationships a bit, our finances a bit. We got to encourage, right, the reliance of spiritual strength, right? And we got to start looking at our own spirituality, our own iles, and we got to reinforce those behaviors and those relationships if we really want to, get to a good place. So Ire de Sugal is a sign that at the end of the day, we have to show gratitude to the ancestors, particularly the deceased parents, specifically the inviting them to give the blessings. A lot of times within this faith, we don't understand the true concept of the glass of water, a candle, glass of water, and flowers. And we don't truly understand the why behind why we do that. And we don't understand that the value of having our ancestors, our eguns aligned with us is just as important as our ori being aligned with us. So we need to constantly keep that in our back of our minds, and Irete Suka reminds us of that. In addition, Irete Suka is also another sign that tells us about, being careful with spiritual risky behavior. Ayobi says be careful with risky behaviors. Irete Suka says be careful with spiritual risky behaviors, such as disrespecting or not following the taboos that align with you. Right? Because how many of you know the taboos that align with you? For everybody who has Iko Fafun, Awofaka, right, who are crown priests and priestesses, who are babalaos, all have something called ewo. Ewos are the things that you are prohibited from doing, prohibited from participating in. All those things are mapped out, right? And those are things that you should know. And that's the reason why Irete Suka tells us that. Now let's relate that back to Letra de Año. So if the beginning of the year is important to understand how we navigate, right, that year, it's important to understand the ewos. What are we prohibited from? What are the things that are going to cause us more chaos? What are the things that are not allowing us to align ourselves? And that's something we got to think about, right? So that's the reason why tuning into the Letra de Año when I broadcasted the first week of January to give you a full comprehensive analysis of the Letra de Año and the things that you should do. And then after this video, I'm going to give you very specific instructions. So stay here to the end. I'm going to give you very specific instructions on what I think you should exactly do, no matter who you are, because I'm going to give you something that's very general to truly prepare you. Okay, so stay tuned towards the end. So now we understand Irete Suka. But Irete Suka also tells us one last thing before I jump off of this one, because I just thought about it. Irete Suka also tells us to conduct rituals, right? For fortune, to remove impurities, infecting the home, the body, the spiritual houses. And what is Letra de Año doing? It's trying to do that very thing. You see how these Oduns, they speak on, we need a venue to truly navigate how we push things and how we gather the community together to move in one solid direction. That is the key to Letra de Año. Okay, so now let's move to the next Odun that I think is going to be fascinating as well. When we talk about Ogunda Meji. Ogunda Meji. But before I do that, let's see. I got a couple of people here in the chat. Little boy Bucheche, Alyssa. All right. So this is showing us where the power lies and make sure we use it most effectively. Absolutely. Alyssa, the big thing here is going to be to ensure that we prep ourselves for what's to come. We prep ourselves for what happens after the letter of the year is pulled. Right? So we got pre letra de año, we got in progress letra de año, and then we have post letra de año. Three very important factors that have to be understood in order for you to be successful as we transition to the next year. So I appreciate you putting that out there. Little boy, bucheche, heavy hands. All right, so now let's talk about Ogunda Meji. Why do we think Ogunda Meji? Why do you think I pick Ogunda Meji to say letter of the year? Right? Letter of the year, letra de año. Right? Because in Ogunda Meji, we understand several things. We understand that it is inevitable, right, of conflict, right? It is inevitable for you to avoid conflict 24/7, 365. That's nature. That's nature. And if we believe anything otherwise, we are living in illusion, right? Because that's what it is to be human, right? So the Odu addresses the inevitability of conflict and the importance of patience, strategy, and sacrifice in resolving all your disputes. Everybody is going to tell you the same thing, and everybody, we all talk about it, and we all love Ogunda Meji, but Ogunda Meji is a sign of war. Ogunda Meji was when the savage, or when the dogs all became savage animals, coyotes and wolves and whatnot. It was a transformation of things that you know are natural into this world. When we talk about accidents and surgeries and things that we know are going to occur, Ogunda Meji is a very, very deep sign. That's why it warns us of potential tragedies, right? And linked to a lot of you know, linked to a lot of, I guess, urgent decision making, hasty actions, right? So it's important when we look at Ogunda Meji, we begin to say, well, wait a minute, how does this relate to letra de año? Right? Well, Ogunda Meji does a lot of warning, tells us about tragedy that can arise, right? Because of poorly considered favors or discernments, or things that maybe we didn't kind of necessarily give a hard look on when we were strategizing or planning or executing for our lives. you know, it's important in order to clean ourselves and to have the concepts of spiritual cleansings in order to avoid these conflicts and things to come. Recognizing the importance of legacy and family responsibilities and obligations. We got to make sure that we protect and we care for our families and our children and our community. Wunda Mei symbolizes a lot of different things here. But when you piece it together, right, goes back to what I said originally. The importance of patience, waiting for the letra de año to come, the planning, the pre-stages of letra de año, then the strategy. Now the letra año is being pulled. We're going to strategize on how we're going to use that, and we're going to use it to build upon. Then the sacrifices, the bulls and the offerings and the things that we're going to do in order to ensure that we get to where we got to get to. Because again, Ogunda Meji, importance in patience, strategy, and sacrifice, right? And resolving all disputes and all barriers. Right? So now let's think about that even further, right? When you look at Ogunda Meji, you're seeing it in the lens of letra de año. You're seeing it in a format that's allowing us to push forward. Hey, Boroboy Bucheche, plan settled. So it's important for us to truly navigate these waters carefully, if that makes sense. So let's think about this now even further. Let's go in deep a little. Let's get a little deeper, if we shall, right? When we talk about the aspects, right, of and I guess there's tons of different ways for us to kind of navigate this. When we talk about different oduns like Obeyekun, right? Obeyekun gives us the necessity of balance, right, between collective and individual actions. Letra de año, right? Because what are we trying to do? Collective advice for the community to move in one direction. So then that way we can, you know, get ahead of the challenges, but also the blessings, right? Get the blessings, right? So that spiritual action in order to harmonize us is important. Another odun that I like to think about a lot of times, Oturaniku. Oturaniku is the sign that's telling us that we can never get anything truly done unless we align our ancestors to the actions that we do. Oturaniku reflects all the masculine eguns, all the masculine energy in this world and how it navigates. Oturaniku reminds us that it's necessary for cooperation and community, right, in addressing spiritual and material matters. The spiritual and the physical world have to bring balance. This is why it's super important. It's the reason why we got to advocate, right, for collectively honoring the eguns, right? We got to collectively understand the transformative power of unity, right? Oturaniku is very pivotal to why we do something like the Letra de Año, the Odun of the Year, right? That's very important to understand as well. So it's very, very important for us to understand that, but also who is exactly bringing us the letter of the year. And that goes back to my first point, Ayobi. If Olofin and Orunmila already told us in Ayobi that they were the ones that are going to govern and they're the ones that are going to bring us the peace and the beginning of all things, then we have to remember that now it's the Babalaos, right? By direct authority that have to be able to take this responsibility on and now brief this to the world in order for us to move forward. That's another concept on why letter of the year is important. But why letter of the year is also important is because in part of that ceremony, they grab the youngest Babalao. Get this, the youngest Babalao will be the one that casts the Inkings and they pull the Odun because it is the youngest Babalao in that bunch that has the very direct blessings of Olofin and Orunmila through mandate of Ayobi. So that means that Ache is pure. Another reason why it's super important to understand the letter of the year. Super, super important. Hey, Budoboy Bucheche. Who else I got? Janae, Budoboy Bucheche. And Nathali, Budoboy Bucheche. So now, it's funny you say that, Janae, the cheat code. I'm gonna give you the cheat code in a minute, right after I finish going through my spill, whatever is in my head right now. Because when I think letra de año, I think Elegua, I think I think Ogunda Meji, I think Oturaniku, I think about unity, I think about the rituals that it takes to pull off a letter of the year because there's a lot in there. I think about Irete I think about, how do we mitigate negative influences so we can have a good year, Obeyekun, and other good odun. I haven't talked about Obeyekun. I haven't talked about Obeyekun. Obeyekun, when we talk about the letter of the year, Obeyekun is important because Obeyekun tells us that we have to highlight the necessity of balance, right, between the collective and individual actions, right? Very similar to community that some of the other Oduns was telling us, right? It speaks about the duality of existence, the challenges, right? And blessings and how they both coexist. Obeyekum. That's why one line is all ones and the other one's all zeros. Why? Because it's the first sign and the second sign, right? The grand Omolu. That's what we call Beyekum, the father of combinations. And what it's truly trying to tell us is that, where challenges and blessings coexist and a need for spiritual actions is necessary to harmonize the forces and to bring a collective force of the orishas and the eguns into one in order to allow us to navigate the life that we live so that we can meet our destiny. Right? All right. All right. What else? What else does Letra de Año give me? What do you guys want to know about Letra Año? Throw it in the chat. Let me have it so that way I can respond. But I'm going to keep going through my spiel because I think there's more to say here. What do we know about El Egua? Right? So we understand El Egua, his reoccurring, premise of things in the Letra de Año is the opener and the paths, right, to a new year, right? And we also understand Ogun plays a pivotal role because Ogun is the one that's paving that path so El Egua can open that path. But we also understand that those obstacles need to be fought, which is another reason why your warriors are pivotal, why your warriors are foundational, because the letter of the year is just that, right? In order for us to underscore the importance of navigating spiritual and physical world. And that cannot be understated. Okay, now I think I'm ready to give you guys the cheat code, and then I'm going to answer some questions in the chat. So definitely throw everything in the chat. Let's talk about what I think you should be doing, right, to prepare for the letter of the year, right? Again, in the descriptions below, if you guys all look, guys and gals, you're going to see a link in there, right? Because I also do consultations. If you don't want a consultation for me, perfectly fine. Find a Babalao that can do you with a consultation. Here's what you need to do. The last 3 weeks of December, that means this week you're pretty good. But the last 3 weeks, preferably, let's say the last 3 weeks to give you guys a guideline. Last 3 weeks of December, you should be getting a consultation from a Babalao. Allowing that Babalao to give you everything you need in order for you to enter the new year clean. Nice slate, no issues, no concerns. Another reason why in that same link with the consultations, if you see, there's Omiro that I sell, and that Omiro is dictated in two in a set, right? A set one, a set two. One that is to clean you, and one is to refresh you. So a cleanser and a cleaner. Bitter herbs, sweet herbs, specifically designated and designed and put and blessed, right, with hierosum, right, in order to clean the house, to clean yourself, to clean your children, everybody, so that you can enter the new year clean, right? So, pre-letra de año, what should you be doing? Getting a consultation and figuring out how to clean yourself. If you don't maybe want to get the consultation, maybe it's like, hey, I'll just get the baths and do that. As long as you're doing something to enter the new year as clean as possible, that is the goal. Recommended. You get the consultation, you get the baths, you get the house clean, you get yourselves clean, and you get the new year just right in a nice, organized, clean home, ready to go. Right? Now, letra de año is coming in, right? Now we're in letra de año. It's 12 midnight, 31st of December. We're going into 2025. Happy New Year's. Now, the key is tune in, right? Tune in to that letter of the year, right? Whether it's you're listening to me because I'm giving you the no kidding, the real deal. I'm giving you something that I know is legit, and I want you to at least listen, follow, and find that guidance and that sweet spot so that you can navigate your life. Or maybe you have a letter of the year or a letra de año that maybe your godfather pulls for his spiritual house, his ile, which is just fine. No issues there. And you follow that and you understand that to the T. Perfect, right? And you do everything that is necessary for that year. Now, let's talk about post letra de año. Now, you went into the new year clean. You now have the guidance and the knowledge, and you understand some things, and you're going to start moving forward. But for those of you, right, well, actually for everybody, now it's time to go into post action. Now you should get another consultation. Now that the dust has settled, now that we have a lot of information, and now you get another consultation to see what actions exactly you need to do in order to maintain the blessings that are coming for 2025. You cleaned yourself, you entered right, you understand everything that's going on with letra de año. Now you get a consultation so the Babalao can guide you based on what's going on letra de año. Maybe you have Ikofa and Awofaka, and you have Oduns that need to complement that, because again, those are going to be the foundations to the pillar of the letra de año. And now you're going to be prescribed in a book that's going to take care of your annual business, right? The things that you need to get after, right? That complements both, right? Now you're doing even better, right? Now you're getting after it. That's the cheat code. It's just that simple. All right. So, hey, with that said, I want to go ahead and I want to look at some of the chat and I want to make sure I'm answering everybody in the chats. Iretesukal was the sign I pulled when I got my hand of Orula last year. That was also the letter of the year in 2024. That's wild. Hey, Dante, something beautiful for you is going to be that you should be the most senior expert on Natura and Iretesukal, right? Because at the end of the day, that you were living not only throughout the year, you got to experience the energy of Irete Sukal that aligned with your Ile or with you, right? And you also are living that for the rest of your life, not just for that year. So no, that's beautiful that you're sharing. That is wow. That's a beautiful thing. Paul, what you say? You said, do the same taboos affect our lives before we receive our mano de orula? Paul, the letter of the year is going to complement your awufaka, your hand of Ifa. Your hand of Ifa, remember, everybody, is your destiny, is your ori, right? So if you're building a house, let's say you get the foundation right, that's your mano de orula. And that foundation is, or that road, everything that leads you to the destiny that you have, right? And everything else complements it. No different than your pillar of letra de año, your pillar of maybe you get crowned and now you have de legum, made de legum, signs that you need to follow. Maybe you receive a spiritual misa. Maybe you get, you get all these different advices, right? That complement the foundation, like different walls in a house. But the foundation is the foundation. It never changes. Those taboos never go away. But the letter of the year can give you other taboos of things that you probably shouldn't do and things that you should be aware of. So that's something to think about as well. But great question, Paul. Great question. All right. What else is on here? Steve, so our ELA will reflect on the letter of the year from the group in Miami. Does that mean you do not pull a letter of the year for the ELA specific? Hey, Steve, great question. Many ELAs do their own letter of the year. I do not. Here's one of the main reasons why I do not is because that takes a huge workforce, right? I need a lot of babalaos. I need a lot of helpers. I need to be able to open the land. I need to be able to do a lot of feedings. We got to bring down a lot of strong divinities. We got to give OB to many different positions. So there's a lot of logistics to it. And as many of you know, I have a full-time job and I move a lot for work every couple of years. And that keeps me kind of busy, but it also keeps me limited to that community. That's the reason why I consider my community you guys. You guys are my community. You guys are all my ile, right? Even though maybe I didn't give you hand of Ifa, right? Maybe I didn't give you, any type of divinities. Maybe I'm not the one consulting you, but I do see YouTube land, right? Cyberland is my domain. That's the reason why I love to educate, because that's important, right? But yes, so answer your question for ile o dileke, omodo dileke. No, I do not pull one, but I have trusted folks that are pulling it in Miami that I trust, and those are the ones that we're going to use. Because remember, the concept of letra de año is aligned with the old news, like I spoke about, but more importantly, it aligns with the lands that we live in, right? In this particular case, not only do I trust them, but they're also doing it in the United States. So for me, that's important. So because those two things align, now we get to kind of see what this land is needing, right? What this land is calling for, and how do we align with that best? So hopefully that answers that question. Great question. If you need a consultation, though, he is very thorough and helpful. No, but boy, I appreciate that, Alyssa. I appreciate that. I love doing consultations. If you talk to my wife, she'll probably tell you I probably spend too much time on the consultations. But hey, I love talking to people. I like teaching people. I love talking about old dudes. Old dudes are important. Let's see. Janae, why do they choose the youngest Babalao for this? Because the youngest Babalao is the most pure. Is the one that is closest to a Wow Lofing or Babalaos we call Odu. Because when we go through our sacred ceremonies to become a Babalao, that divinity and that essence is there and it's present to initiate us in the eyes of Olofin, right? So because that essence and that ache is so raw and pure, that youngest Babalao has a lot of power, right? In order to do what he's got to do. So that is the main reason why, right? It's just a very pure way of moving, and it's a beautiful thing. And then no one can also question it because you'd be surprised. People always question anything they don't understand. People fear the things that they don't understand. A lot of times people will be like, they manipulated it. Ain't nobody manipulate anything. We're all spiritual people in the eyes of God trying to do God's work. That's what Bawalaos do. Well, no, great question there. I see my wife is running around. Hey, buru boy, bucheche to my PTB, Alexandra. Trey, should we make it bold to Eguns before? Trey, so going back to what I said earlier, hey, the pre-letra de año, you should absolutely get a consultation to dictate what am I doing with Eguns? What am I doing with Eguns? What am I doing with Orishas? What am I doing with Ifá? Hey, Boro boy, Bucheche, heavy hands. Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot. Thank you for that. That was very generous. Um, so so should you give Egun something? Yes. But should it be done behind a consultation? Yes. And the reason why is because no babalaos, no olorishas, no santeros, santeras, nobody has the authority to speak out of terms. And the terms come from Mira de Legun, Ifa, and we got to make sure that we get this right. Right. So my advice is consultation, figure out what you gotta do. Now, for those who cannot do that or for one reason or another, right, at least get the baths. At least clean your bodies yourselves, right? Clean the house, your family, get into the new year, right? Honor the Egun. So in your case, as you mentioned it, Trayvon, yeah, honor the Eguns. Go to your Teja de Egun. Maybe you have a bóveda set up. Maybe you don't. Glass of water, flowers, candle, boom. Honor those ancestors. Go peel back that family tree. Write the name down of those deceased. Start praying to align to those Eguns that may not even be an ancestor by blood of yours, but still walk with you, right? Those Indians, those Gypsies, those Congos, you, etc. They're all there. They're all there. All right, what else we got here in the chat? We as a Ile file the letter as from Ifá as well as De Legun and Ocha. Okay. So I'm gonna be real honest with you guys. The reason why I gave you all these old dunes, right, was not because I wanna just throw old dunes out there, but no, I need you to understand. Remember, in Iyobe and Ifá, we recognize that a wild loafing and Orunmila guide the faithful, the spiritual assistance that's extended to humans, right, for major ceremonies, right? This is the reason why I'm going to just break this down a little bit. Why I tell you, foundationally, you receive your warriors and your hand of Ifa before you do anything else. And then, a Boya, you run off and maybe your goal is to be a priest and a priestess. And hey, more power to you. That's beautiful. And you align and you crown in Ocha. Beautiful. Maybe you go to Ifa and become a Babalao. Beautiful. But you saw the foundation. The foundation was I got to go to the foot of Orunmila in order to understand my destiny and where I'm going. So, what does that mean? That means that we're looking at Ifa. Babalaos need to do their job. Babalaos are dictated through the authority, as I just mentioned, right, to assist, right, because it's recognized by Olofin and Orunmila. The disciples of Orunmila happen to be the Babalaos. They got to get after it. So anything that's thrown by Delegun, to me, is not the right thing to do. Mire de Legun doesn't have a role in Letra de Año. Right? I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm not saying if somebody did it, don't listen. I'm not saying any of that. But I'm just saying I do not recognize that. That's just something that, I would tell you that my elders share that same sentiment. And because of where people fall in the pecking order, right? Everybody is equal. Everybody has their own authorities. Everybody does their own different type of things. We work collectively in the name of Olodumare God, but we got to be careful on how those lines are drawn. And again, I'm not trying to start nothing here with, hey, saying that certain people can do certain things, but we got to really put that into perspective. This is the reason why I teach Oduns and what Oduns are attracting to what, specifically Letra de Año. All right. So follow Ifá, in short. What else we got here? Bendiciones, Taishade, Buruboya, Paul. Youngest in age or when they became a Bawalao? Paul is when they became a Bawalao. When they came out of that room of Ifá. When they walked in not knowing anything and they left probably still not knowing too much. Right? And so therefore, they're so pure. They're so humble. They just went through a massive initiation ceremony where they literally left their life behind and came back brand new. Mhm. That's the reason why. Right? So no, a Buru boya. All right. Hey, so I think that's all the questions. I think that's all the questions. And I think it's about that time to kind of log off. Right. And I understand that there's a slight delay, between my stream and what YouTube is putting out there. So as always, I always stay behind a little bit and I monitor the chat. As like I mentioned before, always please look at the descriptions below. If you have any information, you want to shoot me an email, you want to look at all my other social media accounts, those things are important. So with that said, hey, Iburu, Iboya, Bucheche, Cyberlight, Fair Babalao, coming at you and always excited. You are my community and I appreciate each and every one of you. Appreciate you. And with that said, Iburu Boya, Ibu Che Che. Again, heavy hands. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.